Non-conference season is over. It's time to just move on and invest in Big Ten futures. That's right. It's Wednesday. It is time for some Stock Watch with Bill Landis and Austin Ward on the Podcast Daily. You got all this information now, some data to crunch, and now you have to put the money out there so that you can become rich by the end of November.
I don't know if I'll become rich.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, we're going to make some investments for the start of Big Ten play because Ohio State plays at Michigan State Saturday, prime time. It's streaming on the car.
Yeah, it sure is. Is there an opportunity to, are people trying to like fire sale Ohio State's defense a little bit because it had a handful of a couple bad
a little insider
moments?
Trading moments?
Like I would, if there's any of that available, like I'll still very much buy stock in the idea that I think this is an awesome defense, and will be very good. And I think
That's bold.
And I think it will remind people of that this weekend against Michigan State. Now, Michigan State's offense is not tremendous, but maybe I'm not buying anything. Maybe I would just offer a tip on this Stock Watch to like not dump anything you had invested in Ohio State's defense based off what you saw against Marshall. I think by and large, people here are still feeling very much really good about where this defense is headed and the pieces that it has and what it's going to be able to do. Like there will be moments along the way where they'll have to adjust things and teams will find ways to find the chinks in the armor, I guess, that every defense has. But from a personnel standpoint, I just don't know that there are many teams out there that are going to throw out on the field what Ohio State is capable of putting out there. And I include some of the guys who were quote unquote backups on this team in that conversation too. So like they had a shutout in the non-conference. It's given up 2 touchdowns in 3 games. It's given up 5 explosive plays in 2 games. It should be this way, but no one they've played moved the ball against them consistently. I know now that the challenges are going to be much, much more difficult getting in the Big Ten play, but I still have all the belief that I had in this defense coming into the season to be perhaps the best in the country, if not that, certainly one of the best in the country, and the thing that will, I think, ultimately carry Ohio State to where it wants to go to. And I'm not changing that stance, certainly based off what I saw against Marshall.
But Jim Knowles said there was no silver bullet of the day, and
yeah, well, he's trying to influence the markets because he's got some stock.
He's got that stock.
He's trying to gobble some more up at a lower price.
Well, that's smart.
Yeah, it is smart.
It's
illegal, but in this case, don't want to come for him.
Well, nobody actually regulates
That's true.
the markets that we're betting on.
That's true.
Which is the great thing. So you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
There was a lot. If they're goosing something out there, they're telling you to buy Taiwan Malone.
They definitely are.
I think that was a lot more praise for his performance than maybe I realized leaving on Saturday. Because even the play that he made early, it's like, I don't know, that was the 45-yard line that was tripping up Marshall. Like, Taiwan Malone was there. I should have given him maybe more credit for that. He was probably going to make that play.
He was in position.
He was in position to make that play. And more impactful, perhaps, than I would have given him credit for just leaving the shoe on Saturday. But across the board, you could say this about all the defensive tackles. Like, there were moments where you really see Caden McDonald getting ready to take that next step. There are some things about Jason Moore physically that you continue to like. I guess I hadn't really considered going into last week that there hadn't been as much conversation about Taiwan Malone elevating to that next level, that maybe he would be the one to do that. Even 8 days ago, Ryan Day's previous Tuesday press conference getting ready for Marshall, he named Will Smith, Caden McDonald, and Jason Moore. And you'd take that for whatever it's worth, but Taiwan Malone's name wasn't in that group of 3 that he mentioned. So like, it was sort of not, it was out of sight and out of mind for me that maybe he would have the type of outing that he did, but he met the moment. Those snaps were out there and he made the most of them. Were they perfect? Did he ace the test? Was it silver bullet of the day worthy? Apparently not, but good enough that he could be in line to start for Tyleik Williams if that situation arises on Saturday night.
It was really encouraging, I think, and that's fine if it's all it was, because I know I expected him to play like immediately when he got here based off recruiting pedigree, and probably didn't give enough deference to the fact that he was a multi-sport athlete who was just beginning to focus solely on football. But even then, I thought it took a little longer for him to kind of break out, because he kind of didn't break out at all last year. But he's an incredible athlete, so it was good to see, I guess, the ceiling a little bit put on display. Well, again, it wasn't like a tour de force defensive tackle performance, but on a day where a lot of guys kind of didn't show up, he certainly showed up a little bit. So that was good to see, and I hope he can build on it. I'll stay on the defensive line. I'll buy a little Caden Curry stock if there's any available. I think
Berm has it all.
Yeah, Berm might have it all, but he's not here to defend himself. So I'll take whatever's there. I like what they're doing with some of the Rushman stuff when they line him up on the inside, because I just sense that it's probably difficult for interior offensive linemen to handle like the quick twitch and the speed of Caden Curry, who is like a little bit of an undersized defensive lineman, but I actually think that might help him in pure pass rush situations against guys who aren't as fleet of foot as he is. And then they had the one pressure against Marshall where they kind of ran a game where he was outside and then they looped him back inside. And like that guard didn't know what planet he was on trying to handle Caden Curry. And like they'll face better offensive linemen, obviously, moving forward. But I think there's something there that's starting to become consistent for Caden. It was a bummer to see him get tossed from that game, but it was in the first half, right? So he can play in the first half against Michigan State this week. I think you might start to see a little bit of an uptick maybe in production, specifically in passing situations, when you can be a little more aggressive with your rush lanes and be a little more creative with that kind of stuff, because I do think Caden Curry presents some mismatches against offensive linemen.
I thought from the start on Saturday against Marshall that Caden Curry was going to have like a huge game, or at least maximize every snap that he got. We don't always know how that's going to work out with workload, and even in non-conference games, how much do you need to be out there? How much are they going to use the rushman, or the situation's going to present itself? But on the very first kickoff of the game, Caden Curry ran down at two Marshall players that were trying to double team block him, and he wound up fighting both of them like well past the whistle. And I was like, that's the motor's running for this one. And then when he got that sack, in the second quarter before his ejection, like that didn't really surprise me. There's something going. We've never questioned any of the work ethic or the way that he plays, which just is 150 miles an hour at all times. But if he's continuing to figure some things out, whether that's technique, whether that's scheme, how Ohio State's using him, boy, it feels like there's something coming.
Yeah, I don't. When you play with like the energy that Caden Curry plays with, I guess I could see a situation where like maybe it's a little difficult to channel that sometimes. It may not even take you a couple of years, especially when you're not playing every single snap to kind of figure that out. But it feels like he's got his feet under him a little bit. And there's always been flashes, but I feel like it's been a little more consistent so far. And I'm excited about it because they need somebody else to step up there. It can't just all be Jack and JT all the time. And if you think that might be Kenyatta Jackson or even Mitchell Melton, it certainly could be. But I think the guy that's really shown the most so far is Caden Curry.
I'm going to take a stock up on a technique, a stiff arm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I honestly.
That's good.
When was the last time, I can't think of one offhand, that an Ohio State running back put somebody in the dirt with just a violent stiff arm? I think Mayan may have had one. It wasn't really a forte of J.K. Dobbins to use that, but both Travion and Quinshawn unleashed just the nastiest, most violent, bone-rattling stiff arms that you possibly could.
Yeah, they did. I was actually, I want to, I don't know when or if we'll talk to Carlos Laughlin again, but I feel like I've noticed that both running backs and even James Peoples, when he's in there, like they're all really good at utilizing their offhand in really effective ways. Obviously, the stiff arms are the most obvious way to do that, but even like helping keep your balance, or there was on Quinshawn's long touchdown run, he didn't stiff arm somebody, but like somebody got through the hole and he kind of just like swatted their hand away as he was getting through the line of scrimmage, and that provided him some more space to get through for that long touchdown. It's just like really savvy stuff, I think, that you would expect veteran running backs to be able to do. But I don't know if it's a skill set that I've always noticed with Ohio State running backs, but it was on full display against Marshall.
Yeah, I think we've watched these guys over the last few years, and you're like, oh, Travion's got a really good jump cut, or he's going to accelerate, and once he gets to the second level, he's going to run away from you, and spin moves going back even further. But that's just like old school running back power move. And I think once that's complemented with doing all those other things really well, like Quinshawn's straight line speed, certainly on the 86-yard touchdown run, was probably a moment where I didn't realize that was really part of his game. I don't remember seeing it that way at Ole Miss, and clearly that was the longest touchdown run of his career. Like, he had the straight line speed, and that was probably better than I don't know. It was nice to see that part of his game, the same way that I felt when Travion showed the vision in a way that was different from previous in his career to press a hole. This isn't it. And then bouncing it back and cutting it back to the left side on one of his, I think it was a third down run. Maybe it wasn't. I'd have to go double check on that one. But both of them showing some improvements in different parts of their game. And the stiff arm is the flashiest version of that. Man, it's cool to see that, because doesn't seem to be anything that you could ask of a running back that those guys can't do right now.
No, the Travion one was awesome, because like I just wasn't expecting it. Like Quinshawn, when you kind of the way that he is like built and the way that he carries himself, like, yeah, that guy's going to run through someone's face. But it's like, oh my God, Travion, where did that come from?
Yeah, and then once you put somebody on the ground, then you run away from them too. So it's pretty darn good.
They are as advertised, I think, is probably the best way to say it so far. Can I buy some stock in? I think we've not seen a ton of yet, which is Will Howard running, that I think we're going to see now that we're in Big Ten play.
There's no rule against it.
Okay, I'm going to do that. Will Howard, I think, has 2 design runs and 1 scramble through 3 games, if my math is correct. Can I count to 3? I think it is very much a part of this offense moving forward. It is I guess in some case, like some sense, a break in case of emergency kind of thing. Like you don't want to needlessly run Will Howard, especially in these non-conference games. They haven't had to, so they didn't. But he's excited about it. I think he wants to do it. He knows that once he starts doing it, it's just another thing that defenses are going to have to worry about that Ohio State has not tapped into just yet. I think we start to see it come out a little more even this week against Michigan State. Michigan State's got a pretty good front, but it's also got a pretty aggressive front. So I think that's maybe when those opportunities start to present themselves, where you can really bait a guy into running with the running back, and Will Howard pulls that thing out and he runs for a few yards. I think this is the next step of the offense. Even more than like throwing the ball down the field, which you talked about on Tuesday. I think Will Howard's legs being more of an element is truly the next step of this offense, and it's definitely there. They've certainly practiced it. They've talked about it all off season, and now I think we start to see him dust it off a little bit.
Yeah, I think you could tell Will Howard was asked about his legs and if he thought teams were cognizant of his rushing ability and the way they were trying to defend Ohio State. And he's like, well, I don't know why they would be at this point. He's like, I haven't really sensed that, because he has not had to run, and that there are things in the Ohio State offense that we have not seen in games yet. And we've mentioned that a bunch with, certain concepts and misdirection things that we know that Chip Kelly was working on, whether that was in here in March and April, or even throughout training camp and in the 5 practices that we got to watch. Like, we know that that's out there. And the most obvious one of them all is Will Howard being a rushing threat, whether that's zone read stuff, whether that's designed. There was a little bit of a glimmer of that actually against Akron, which is like sort of a quarterback power counter run or whatever. Yeah, power. And he had the touchdown run against Western Michigan. That's really just scratching the surface. And I think you could tell there was almost like a smirk that Will Howard gave. It's like, yeah, if they think that they've seen it, they haven't. It's still coming.
Yeah, I think something to do with Will Howard rushing is high up on the bold piece hot board this week.
Just giving it away. Wait for Big Ten to play.
Yeah, that's right.
Big Ten play to come around to get it going. I think that's a good one. You can invest on that. It's another stock tip ahead of bold peas.
Yeah,
I think I've mentioned, I think probably everyone on the offensive line over the last couple of weeks, and I'll do it again because I still think that there's still some skepticism that maybe Ohio State needs to see a more aggressive front like Michigan State this week, or closer talent equated or Big Ten caliber athletes before people are fully on board. And if that's the case, that's fine. If it keeps the stock price low so that I can scoop up a little bit more, I'm going to do that. I've mentioned Austin Saraveld. I think they're going to keep playing both Saraveld and Tegra Shabola at right guard moving forward. Seems like Ryan Day, and we haven't talked to Justin Fry about this since the season started, but it's like he mentioned the tablet, of course, but also the chance for these guys to catch a breather. They're still young in their starting careers. Tegra Shabola's in 3 games, and Austin Saraveld started 2 before Donovan Jackson returned. They're still young, relatively inexperienced guys, even with a year or multiple years in the program. In Tegra's case, if this allows them both to not just play fresh, but to get some of the insight and make adjustments on the sideline, good, because we make this point a lot. The length of this season is going to be a grind, and if you can avoid putting snaps on a offensive lineman needlessly, you should definitely do that. If you can develop depth in case you have to tap into that depth, even better. And I think we saw that when Austin Saraveld goes in the game, and immediately helps block one up and seal it for a touchdown run. That was Quinshon's 86-yarder. And that felt to me like it was a designed, this is the drive, Austin Saraveld's going in. It wasn't that Tegra had not played up to par or anything like that to that point, because they went out for the next drive and Tegra tried to run out there and like, wait a minute, he only got one snap, come back to the sideline. So that's not going to work. Like, I think that this is a opportunity that Ohio State never had before. But even if they did have it and they had the confidence to rotate guys, they didn't actually put it into practice and games. This is a different approach, and it's fun to watch. It
is fun to watch. Like it's been a revelation for sure. Like I wasn't anticipating them having a sixth guy on the offensive line that they felt this good about, like clearly as good as they feel about Austin Saravelt. So it provides you depth, it provides you a little bit of peace of mind. I have no issue, I guess, with them rotating as long as it keeps working. I guess if issues start to creep up, then maybe you stop doing it and just kind of pick one. But didn't happen against Marshall, and maybe won't happen this week. And I also want to see too if they'll try to play them all together, right? Do the six lineman thing that they've done in the past with that Bison position. I looked up some numbers. Like Chip Kelly actually has not done a whole lot of that, or did not do a whole lot of that when he was at UCLA. That could certainly just be a byproduct of not having six offensive linemen worth playing. But they've done it obviously a fair amount here at Ohio State. So I think that's still on the table for those guys too.
Ryan Day was asked about the Bison position and whether Austin Saravelt could play that. I think it was last week. It could have been 2 weeks ago. And he sort of said, he could do that. It doesn't sound like that's really what they view as a necessity or solution for the run game. I think the reason that we saw it the last couple of years was just to sprinkle in a little bit to get some experience for someone like Luke Montgomery and get him on the field and get that athleticism. But it was probably more to do with the blocking from the tight ends and the depth of that position. And I think that has skewed it. You don't necessarily need that six lineman because they seem to feel really good about the blocking that they're getting from the tight end unit when they're putting 3 or 4 of them into those short yardage red zone situations.
They are really featuring that tight end position more than I think anticipated, or at least maybe I thought it'd be a more gradual build to featuring it as much as they have been. But like when you put 3 tight ends on the field and run super counter when you're pulling all of them, it's like, okay, I guess you have a decent amount of faith in these guys to get the job done.
Yeah. So you can buy some stocks on the tight ends too. That's a bonus tip.
Yeah.
If you want to use that one wherever you're legally investing in Ohio State football, which we're not allowed to tell you where that is.
No.
The buck market. Hopefully you enjoyed a pre-Big Ten schedule stock watch on the Podcast Daily. It is a Wednesday. There's going to be a Woody Wednesday later. Some snap judgments after we hear from the Buckeyes after practice, probably getting or trying to get another update and a look at Tyleik Williams ahead of his status for Saturday. And the Buckeyes head to East Lansing, Spartan Stadium to take on Michigan State, 7:30. That's on Peacock. Bill will be, if you can't get enough Bill, Wednesday is the full Bill Landis experience. It's a William Wednesday, and he will be on Kings at noon.
I think so.
Think?
I'm pretty sure
I bet he's going to be on
I'm pretty sure I will be.
And then we'll be back in this building later on today, which is Wednesday. This has been the Podcast Daily. He's Bill Landis. I'm Austin Ward. We'll see you later.